The Galactic Oversight Assembly of Yukari Protocol Species, blessedly shortened to GOAEPS, or as humans called it, the Galactic Nanny State, was in session when the doors to Chamber Delta 42 slid open and Doom waddled in wearing flip-flops and a tactical harness tan line. Commander Blair Halvra, United States Navy SEAL, medal-stuffed and mission-baked, marched down the crystalline aisle of horrified aliens with a stainless steel coffee thermos labeled emergency beverage only and a sunburn on her nose that looked like it was plotting its own coup. Delegates recoiled. A tentacled archivist from the Moisturian Confederacy gasped so hard it slingshotted itself into a ceremonial pillar. Someone from the gelatinous Zarnik Blobarchy slurped out a terrified warble and oozed behind the podium for safety. A dozen photophobic species began emitting high-pitched wails as the chamber's environmental sensors started blinking. Biohazard. Ultraviolet trace detected. Possible slow-melt bioweapon activation. A robotic janitor screamed, "DEFCON gargle," and immediately began mopping the air. Blair, unfazed and already sipping her coffee like it was the last tether to sanity in this carnival of overreaction, gave a lazy salute and offered, "Sorry, I sneezed in the sun." That's when Administrator Zervlan 88, a sentient anxiety, fog contained in a gelatinous bureaucratic dome, panicked so hard it filed 3 health violations, flagged a level 7 existential breach, and tried to eject its own soul into a diplomatic fax machine. Security drones swarmed, blinking with alarm, forming a containment bubble around Blair that read, "Potential planet killer, proceed with flinching." She raised one eyebrow. "I had margaritas on a lava moon, not planetary annihilation cocktails." "Thank you very much." This did not soothe the room. Within 6 minutes, Blair was standing in the center of the Intergalactic Incident Review sphere, sealed in a transparent diplomatic terrarium like some deadly space gerbil. The charge? Unauthorized. Dermal photonic modification in a restricted galactic corridor. Translation: she got a tan on the wrong moon. The prosecution insisted her nose was actively blistering with hostile solar intensity. Blair's response: "It's a sunburn, not a death ray. I forgot my SPF. Sue me." They did. A full tribunal session was called, complete with mood orby. Stenographers, multilingual panic sirens, and a ceremonial shrieking choir from the Vrorkin collectives, who were made of nanites and primarily existed to hyperventilate at things. Meanwhile, Blair adjusted her tactical vest, tapped the mic, and muttered, "You folks really need a beach day." At this point, Leitur Raf Dimos, her assigned ethnobotanist, and a man with the attention span of a rabid hummingbird, showed up, 15 minutes late, wearing a Hawaiian shirt that violated 5 treaties and holding a USB stick labeled "Fun in the Sun," a human recreational archive. "I brought visuals," he announced with glee and absolutely no foresight. The moment he loaded the slideshow, a series of images flashed across the chamber. Tanning salons, bodybuilders slathered in oil, Floridians barbecuing themselves beside swimming pools, and, oh dear, a Navy beach volleyball match during a live fire drill. The chamber lost it. Half the Zarnik delegation melted in terror. The Moisturians began chanting "cosmetic warfare," and a Glarg ambassador tried to sue Earth for existential overconfidence. Blair just sipped her coffee louder. By the time the 4th image rolled, a human applying sunscreen with a paint roller on a rooftop while juggling, Administrator Zervlan 88 began vibrating so fast his containment dome fogged over. "Is this ritualized burning?" he wheezed. Blair, now fully seated inside her quarantine orb with one leg casually draped over the side like she was waiting for a manicure, responded, "No, that's Todd. He's an idiot. But also, yes. Welcome to Earth." Somewhere in the back, a delegate whispered, "If they do this to themselves, what would they do to us?" That was the moment when the galaxy collectively realized something. They weren't dealing with mere warmongers. They were dealing with a species that took relaxation as a personal threat to mortality and laughed about it. Blair's tan line, it seemed, was not just a UV incident. It was a message. A war paint, a cosmic Rorschach test. And she was about to paint the galaxy with it. And that's when she grinned. Just enough to make her peeling nose crinkle. Just enough to make 14 alien delegates faint. And somewhere, deep in the data vaults of GOAEPS, a report was filed under Humanity, casualty-driven optimists with tactical sun damage potential. Monitor closely. Do not approach while glowing. Commander Blair Halvra had once faced down a Ruvok acid beast with nothing but a bent crowbar and a splitting headache. But even that didn't compare to the agony of sitting through a galactic oversight emergency session where every species in the room debated the existential terror of skin. The chamber now resembled a hyperventilating zoo of bioluminescent bureaucrats. Above her transparent containment orb floated a rotating neon warning banner reading, "Caution, photonic mutation in progress. Do not stare directly at the human." Blair rolled her eyes so hard she nearly gave herself a concussion. She'd been in this glowing hamster ball for 3 hours, watching with increasing disbelief as her nose burn became the subject of 12 psychological threat assessments, 5 cultural genocide accusations, and a full inquiry into whether coconut-scented lotion was an interstellar nerve agent. Her so-called defense team was led by a Trilaxian legal drone that began every sentence with, "While we respect the ancient customs of your species," and ended every argument with a 404 error noise. Meanwhile, Leltur Raf Deimos, humanity's most dangerous PowerPoint operator, had managed to cue up his second slideshow, titled Sun, Humanity's Eternal Frenemy, without adult supervision. The first slide was a tattooed surfer in board shorts riding a tsunami while flipping off the camera. The second showed a woman using solar reflection off her kitchen foil hat to tan both sides of her face simultaneously. The third was a U.S. Marine Corps barbecuing sausages on a tank barrel in Kandahar while shirtless. GOAEPS collectively screamed. One delegate from the Krintok Theological Accord began weeping into a pouch of nutrient slime, crying out that the humans worship pain as joy. The robotic custodian tried to reset itself by bashing its own head into a support pillar. The Vrorkan nanite swarm formed a pulsating cube and declared, with grim consensus, that human dermal adaptability violated at least 4 entropy laws and 12 peace doctrines. They proposed immediate dissection of Commander Halvra for insight extraction, to which Blair stood up, cracked her back, and calmly asked, "Want me to take my shirt off? You'll get a clearer sample." 4 delegates passed out. The YI containment orb recalibrated itself into a level 9 biohazard threat sphere and started playing ambient harp music for calming effect. Administrator Zervlan 88 had become a twitching mist of overprocessing, its gelatinous containment vessel fogging up from panic sweat vapors. He whimpered into his transcription ports. "Do your kind bathe in radiation?" Blair blinked. Sometimes we drink piña coladas while doing it. Sometimes we play volleyball. Sometimes we pass out, wake up with messages burned into our chests, and call it spring break. Zervlan 88 screamed, imploded slightly, and filed a war crimes complaint against ultraviolet rays. What began as a disciplinary tribunal had now devolved into an all-out existential meltdown. Entire factions of the assembly had retreated to safe meditation zones to cope with the psychological horror of human beach culture. The Zarnik Blobarki, who had previously suggested Blair be offered to the sun as a peace gesture, now whispered nervously about solar heresy vectors. Someone from the Aquarian Lattice Federation misinterpreted the term suntan lotion as dermal lubricant used during combat metamorphosis and proposed restricting Earth's exports until a full theological audit could be conducted. Blair didn't know whether to laugh or fake a sneeze just to see what would happen. By hour 5, the entire session had descended into something resembling an interstellar improv theater, where the actors were all allergic to logic. A new panic erupted when Raf mentioned that humanity also used artificial tanning beds. "Wait," one crystalline delegate rasped. "You simulate the star's fury, for leisure." Blair nodded. Some of us pay for it. A psychic scream echoed through the upper balconies. Someone bit their own antenna off in confusion. At that point, a Centauri hygiene minister proposed reclassifying the entire human species under reckless biothermal entities and suggested creating a special tactical protocol for interacting with tan-lined humans, ideally involving hazmat, suits and holy water. But then something shifted. Slowly. An unexpected ripple moved through the room. Amid the gasps and scattered sobbing, a delegation of battle-scarred warriors from the Korak Voidfang Alliance leaned forward. They were a warlike species. Living. Statues of obsidian and fury, who had been quiet all session, watching, listening. Their commander stood and, in a deep voice that sounded like gravel choking on lava, rumbled, "You survive fire from the sky. And call it relaxation?" The room went silent. Blair locked eyes with him, gave a crooked smirk, and raised her thermos. Only if the drinks are cold and the playlist slaps. A moment passed. Then the Korak commander let out a boulder-sized laugh. Insane, glorious, useful. Suddenly murmurs began to spread. Maybe, just maybe, these humans were engineered, no, bred, for recklessness, for stupid, brave, explosive things that the other 987 civilizations couldn't risk. Perhaps they weren't a threat to galactic peace, but the solution to exploring every region too dangerous, too volatile, or too stupid for the rest. As her sunburn finally began to peel in front of 7 horrified envoys, Blair tilted her head and grinned wider. "So what I'm hearing is, y'all want to hire me?" The Galactic Oversight Assembly of Yukari Protocol Species did what it did best in times of existential confusion. It scheduled an emergency subcommittee meeting, created 17 overlapping reports with conflicting acronyms, and quietly passed. A motion to rebrand Blair Halvra's spontaneous ultraviolet combustion event as a strategic dermal demonstration. Somewhere between bureaucratic paralysis and interstellar panic-laced awe, the galaxy had decided not to imprison her, but to promote her. And so began the poorly thought-out birth of the Human Tactical Risk Deployment Corps, or as Blair insisted on calling it during her first press briefing, Project Burnt Offerings, because nothing says, "We're ready," like a little sizzle. As she stood before a wall of blinking, panic-drenched alien journalists, flanked by a twitchy Lieutenant Raf Deimos and 2 confused translators sweating through their robes, Blair delivered a speech that would be quoted across galactic educational texts and psychiatric manuals for generations. "Ladies, tentacles and gaseous life forms, humanity accepts your offer to fling us at all the parts of space you're too scared to touch. Hazard zones, fun, biohazard planets, bring sunscreen, unstable wormholes, we'll cannonball into them. We've been daring gravity to kill us since the invention of rollerblades." The silence afterward was seismic. Then came the first cheer from the Korak delegation, who pounded their obsidian fists together so hard they broke the press podium. The Vrorkan collectives muttered among themselves, quickly calculating the cost-benefit ratio of disposable humans in black hole archaeology missions. And Administrator Zervlin 88, reduced to a pulsing fog puddle under a ventilation duct, squeaked through his reconstitution vent. "Oh no, we've legitimized them." The program kicked off immediately. Blair was handed a ship, or rather, a repurposed exploratory containment vessel that still had labels reading "Do Not Enter" and "Last Crew Dissolved, Details Classified." She named it the Melanoma Express. Her first mission briefing came in the form of a 947-page galactic safety protocol titled Guidelines for Culturally Non-Explosive Risk Mitigation Under Layered Environmental Anomalies, Draft 17B, which she used to level her coffee table. GOAE Peace requested she pilot the ship into Sector NX Shriek 9, a void so unstable it once reversed the emotional spectrum of an entire diplomatic fleet, causing one ambassador to fall in love with a lamp and 3 others to wage war on their own pants. "Why me?" Blair asked. "Because," Raf muttered, while fiddling with a defibrillator labeled "just in case." The last 10 crews either imploded, melted, or turned into interpretive dance troupes. As they launched, aliens from every known federation watched nervously on encrypted subspace streams, unsure whether to take notes or call for psychological triage. Blair barreled into the void's edge at full throttle, sunglasses on, lip gloss, shimmering like the forewarning of divine doom, yelling, "YOLO is a tactical doctrine," as cosmic static peeled across the hull. Inside the ship, senses screamed. Outside, reality wobbled. Time coughed politely and asked to be excused. Raph threw up in his helmet and then took notes about it for scientific purposes. Meanwhile, Blair kicked open the emergency lounge door, poured herself iced coffee over a ration bar, and shouted over the ship's alarm, "Let me know when the universe stops wetting itself." Miraculously, no, insultingly, the Melanoma Express survived. More than survived. It mapped the sector, redefined void physics, and discovered a habitable moon filled with helium-powered carnivorous flowers that responded positively to country music. Blair tamed them with a karaoke rendition of Ring of Fire. By the time they returned to base, Blair had annexed a diplomatic agreement with the Floral Moon, signed with pollen and a handshake vine, sold exclusive tanning rights to an entrepreneurial species of solar crustaceans, and started bottling the void residue as an exfoliating skin scrub called Black Hole Polish. The galaxy stared. GOAEPS had to invent an entirely new award category, Most Irresponsibly Effective Peacekeeping Operation, which Blair accepted wearing mirrored shades and a bathrobe made from decontamination foil. During the ceremony, a representative from the Crintok Accord timidly approached and asked, "Commander Halvra, would your people be open to colonizing our Deadlight Nebula? It devours hope." She took a sip of her drink, glowing, possibly sentient, and replied, "Only if we can bring a slip and slide." From that moment, the requests poured in. The death belt of Skarn Tor, the laughing meteor swarm. Planet Bloop, classified as a squishy horror anomaly. Every impossible, untouchable, vomit-inducing sector of the galaxy now had a face attached to its future. Blair Halvra, queen of casually surviving the unforgivable. And as word spread that humans willingly grilled their own flesh for sport, that they did push-ups on lava rocks and casually inhaled spices that could kill an anti-realism beast, GOAEPS found itself stuck in the strangest diplomatic paradox of its 1,000-year history. They had unleashed Earth's ultimate weapon, not warheads, not AI, not quantum death wasps, but sheer, unfiltered audacity wrapped in SPF 15 and delivered with a wink. By the time Blair Halvra was invited, summoned, to the Galactic Summit of Unified Crisis Response, it was no longer a question of whether humans were insane, but whether that insanity could be copyrighted, bottled, and used to fix the galaxy's dirtiest problems without accidentally triggering a reality collapse. She arrived late, naturally, wearing a suns out, guns out tank top over her tactical vest and chewing on something that looked like jerky but emitted low-frequency radio signals. The chamber, a kaleidoscope of alien architecture and panicked decorum, had assembled every major delegate, diplomat, sentient policy document, and screen-based governance algorithm from across 987 species. Administrator Zervlan 88, now mostly reassembled and under heavy mist suppression therapy, wheezed into his foggy translation orb, "We convene today to stop her." The problem was simple. Blair's success had become contagious. Other human units, inspired by her antics, were now cliff-diving into gravitational anomalies, arm-wrestling black holes, and uploading extreme diplomacy clips to the galactic equivalent of YouTube. One had survived a conversation with a fifth-dimensional complaint swarm by offering them coupons. Another tamed a radioactive sandstorm by yelling, "Sit!" The chaos wasn't just spreading, it was working. Aliens across the galaxy were reclassifying humans as controlled catastrophes and inviting them into previously forbidden disaster zones. Civilizations once paralyzed by risk were now asking for Blair's strategic recklessness doctrine. a PowerPoint she delivered in 43 minutes while eating a popsicle and bench-pressing a Vrex ambassador. The tipping point came when Blair was tasked with leading a symbolic peace tour to the hollow cradle, a dimension-sized Dyson rift where ships vanished, dreams liquefied, and one time someone's personality came back upside down. The mission was supposed to be ceremonial, observational, not interactive. Naturally, Blair brought a hammock, an aux speaker, 2 crates of lime soda, and Raph, who had by now developed a nervous tic, a cult following, and a doctoral thesis titled Sunburnt Diplomacy, a Field Guide to Planetary Improvisation. The ship dove in. Reality blinked. Logic dissolved. The hollow cradle snarled at them like a cosmic dog with rabies and a PhD in existential horror. But Blair kicked open the cargo hatch mid-transdimensional collapse, leaned out with a megaphone and screamed, "Hey, universe! I'm not wearing sunscreen!" What happened next could only be described in metaphor and mild legal threats. The cradle bent, folded, laughed, maybe cried, and then gently ejected the Melanoma Express with the galactic equivalent of a tired, "Fine, leave." No one had ever been ejected politely from a cosmic death trap before. When the ship emerged unscratched, carrying a hitchhiking blob of sentient twilight who wanted to intern under Blair, the assembly imploded into full bureaucratic panic. Zurvlon 88, trembling like a microwave full of pudding, summoned a vote of censure. "Commander Halvra," he declared, fog trembling, "you have destabilized interstellar norms, corrupted safety protocols, and weaponized casual resilience. You've made entire civilizations feel uncool." Blair adjusted her sunglasses, squinted into the room and said, "You're welcome." That did it. Half the delegates fainted. The rest broke into riotous debate. Some screamed for regulation, others begged for training manuals. A few offered to clone her. The Vorkan collectives drafted a 700-page report arguing that human chaos theory should be a recognized galactic field of science. Meanwhile, Blair began selling bottled UV lamp kits to underfunded exploration guilds under the slogan, "Get burned, get braver." When the summit collapsed into shouting, weeping, and one spontaneous interpretive dance, Blair stood on the central platform, whistled loud enough to stun a Haxian thunder beetle, and said, "Let me spell it out for you freaks. You didn't unleash a war machine. You invited a vacationer. Earth doesn't conquer. It survives, loudly, weirdly, and occasionally while doing yoga on a volcano. You want peace in the galaxy? Send us where you're afraid to go. Just bring snacks." And in that moment, across 1,000 sentient species, 5 collapsing dimensions, and 17 panicking bureaucracies, the galaxy made a silent, deeply disturbed truce with humanity. Not through surrender, not through fear, but through the creeping, undeniable realization that Commander Blair Halvra wasn't just a sunburned lunatic with sarcasm and grenades. She was the future of risk management, strategic madness incarnate. And as her sunburn flaked one final piece onto the diplomatic carpet, later to be enshrined in a museum under heavy quarantine, the new galactic protocol was quietly drafted and universally approved. In case of catastrophe, break glass, deploy. Human,